In the far future, the galaxy is full of war, but not every secret is born in battle. Some are hidden behind silence, behind names that were once spoken and then taken away. The Imperium honors 18 Primarchs. Their statues stand in halls of stone, their deeds told by the firelight of broken worlds. But there were once 20. 2 are missing. No one tells their stories. Their names are not written. Their records are gone. Some say they were never found. Others believe they were cast out. Few dare to ask what truly happened. Even fewer survive the answer. This is not a story about fire or victory. This is about memory, about what is left out, about what should never be known. You don't need to understand every war or every name to listen. You only need to follow the voice. Let it carry you. This tale moves like a shadow across a quiet floor. It speaks not in commands, but in calm steps. It starts with the Emperor, then slips into halls where voices are forbidden. This is the story of the lost, the 2nd and 11th. Forgotten not by mistake, but by choice. On Terra, deep within the walls of the Imperial Palace, there is a place most never see. It is not shown on maps. It has no name. The custodes who stand watch at its gates do not speak of what lies inside. They do not need to. What rests beyond is not forgotten. It is sealed. The hall is vast, quiet, shaped like a curve of stars pulled into stone. 20 thrones are carved into its heart. Each was made to hold a Primarch. Each was placed with care during the earliest days of the Great Crusade, when hope still rose like dawn through storm clouds. 18 of those thrones are marked with relics, symbols of war, signs of honor and loss. One holds a shattered gauntlet, another a long coil of broken chain. Every Space Marine knows what these things mean. They honor the Primarchs who rose, fought, and either fell or endured. But 2 thrones are bare. There are no names, no marks, no offerings left behind. The silence around them is heavy, and those who pass near say they feel as though time moves differently there, quieter, slower, afraid. No record tells why. No text dares explain, and yet the Emperor once did speak of them. He does not anymore. In the early days of the Imperium, when the stars were being claimed one by one, the people believed they were part of something endless. Ships crossed the void, worlds bent to the Emperor's will. The dream of unity was strong, but not every part of that dream was meant to be seen. There were pieces removed, quiet holes where answers should have lived. The lost Primarchs, 2nd and 11th, are not just names taken out. They are events erased, stories untold. Records once written, now torn apart, page by page, until only the space between the words remains. Across the Librarium archives, there are thin gaps where files should be. Old cogitators show file strings that skip from 1 to 3, from 10 to 12. The numbers are not broken, they are whole, which means someone made them that way on purpose. On some Forge worlds, machine priests speak of redacted data they are not allowed to touch. Blank files guarded by servitors who do not answer to them. One tech priest said she once opened one of these sealed strings, but the moment she did, the machine shut down and would not wake again. She never tried a second time. And on planets like Medusa, even the old stones sometimes hint at forgotten brothers. Statues with features smoothed away, names chipped off not by age, but by blades. One such carving stood deep within an old fortress once claimed by the Iron Hands. It was tall and bent forward as if grieving. It wore armor that did not match any known legion. When asked, The Iron Fathers would only say the statue was not meant for display. Then it was gone. Not all memory fades with time. Some is forced into silence. When the Emperor made his sons, the Primarchs, he scattered them across the stars through an accident few understand. The warp had torn open. The infant Primarchs were lost. Each landed on a world far from terror. Years later, each was found again, shaped by the cultures that raised them. Each became a leader. Except two. The 2nd and 11th were found. That is the part most do not realize. They were discovered, just like the others. They were brought to the Emperor. They walked among their brothers. They wore the gene seed. They raised legions. And then, all mention of them ended. They did not fall during the heresy. They were not slain by Xenos. They were not seduced by chaos, at least not in any way the other traitors were. If they had been, their names would still remain in warning. The traitors are remembered. Their crimes are recorded. But the lost are not punished. They are removed. And when a person is removed like that, it means the truth is worse than betrayal. It means the truth must be forgotten to keep others from following. There is an old tale passed down among some of the remembrances. A group of them was sent to Luna early in the Great Crusade to record a gathering of the legions. They had seen all the banners, painted all the armor plates, carved words for each of the 20. But when their scrolls were collected decades later, their copies showed only 18. When asked about the missing 2, they gave no answer. Not one of them remembered even having drawn the extra marks. They believed they never had. This is not just silence, it is control. And maybe the most chilling part is this. No one claims to know their fate. Not the Inquisition, not the High Lords, not even the Black Library holds open record of what became of the 2nd and the 11th. Their legions were not wiped out in war. They did not break apart into renegades. They were simply removed, cleanly, fully, without ripple or echo. And so the question lingers. Not what they did, but why their memory was taken. And why, even now, the Imperium trembles to ask. Most who speak of the Emperor describe his power. Some call him the guiding force of mankind. Others speak of him as a warrior, a master of war and will. But in the oldest accounts, before the Crusade, before the wars of the Warp, there were whispers of something else. Not strength, not fury, but sorrow. Malcador the Sigillite once said the Emperor held a mind deeper than any sea, that he could see both past and future, that every decision pressed against him like the weight of a mountain. And though he ruled with command and control, there were moments, hidden between battles and speeches, when he sat alone, silent, still. One such moment was recorded during the early council of the Primarchs. The sons had begun to gather, returning from their worlds. One by one, they stood before their father. Robut Gilliman, strong and bright. Leman Russ, wild but loyal. Vulcan, unshaken. Each reunion was recorded, each filled with careful words, viz and purpose. But in the center of those records, 2 meetings are marked only by blank lines. 2 names were listed, then scratched out. No reason given. Later, Malcador removed those documents from the librarian vaults. He said they no longer served the truth. The custodes who watched that wing of the archives did not argue. When asked what had changed, they gave no answer. Their faces remained calm, their voices quiet. But during that same season, one of the Adeptus Mechanicus on Mars reported something strange. A large data block in their vaults, a full legion's worth of command structure, was rewritten in a single day. Hundreds of records gone. The engine that stored them overheated and melted. When the tech priest tried to rebuild it, he found something he could not explain. A black seal, shaped like a broken circle. Not a warning, but a command. One word was etched beside it in High Gothic: silence. And then came the shift in the emperor's behavior. In the early days, he would speak of his sons with open care. When he named Horus as his favorite, he did so before all others. When he praised Guilliman, he let the words carry far. But once the lost were removed, something in him changed. There were fewer public speeches, fewer displays of closeness. The warmth faded. It was as if a shadow had touched him, but he did not fight it. He accepted it, even welcomed the weight. Not like anger, more like grief. The emperor does not show emotion in the way humans do. He does not sigh or tremble. But those who stood near him say that, after the erasure, there were times when he would pause mid-command, just long enough for those watching to wonder if he had forgotten something, or someone. Even the Mechanicum noticed it. Their machines, built to track pulse and pattern, logged unusual stillness in his actions. Not delay, just hesitation, like a door he would not open. And while the Imperium moved on, while the stars were conquered and the legions marched forward, that weight remained. Not always heavy, not always present, but never gone. When Horus fell, some said it was the deepest wound the emperor had ever known. But those who served before the heresy, those who saw him when the thrones were full and the galaxy still rising, some of them believed the first wound was greater. The loss of 2 sons, not to death, but to silence. No records remain of what he said when they left. No words were passed down. But one line survives, spoken not by the emperor, but by Malcador. He said, "It is not the traitors that break him, it is the ones he cannot mourn." And maybe that is the truth of the lost.
Not that they failed,
But that their end was so complete, there was no one left to grieve them. There is a legend that floats in forgotten corners of Luna, among the quiet halls of the abandoned gene labs, deep beneath the dust of time, there rests an old console. It no longer works, but its surface holds a single phrase, scratched in by hand. The words say, 2 stars cast together, swallowed apart. No signature follows, no record places who wrote it. But among the few who still visit those dead levels, the message holds weight. Some believe the 2nd and 11th Primarchs were born as twins. The thought has no place in official archives. None of the others are paired. Each was scattered through the warp on their own. Each grew under different skies, with different hands shaping them. But the twins, if real, may have been bound deeper, not just in blood, but in purpose. Those who dig into early Crusade files, what remains of them, point to strange overlaps. 2 legions with training patterns that mirrored one another. Tactical formations built not to stand alone, but to act as halves. One led through complete silence, the other through unwavering obedience. Together they could move without words, without thought, as if one mind lived in 2 bodies. Some early remembrances called them the Twins of Silence, not because they were quiet, but because others grew quiet in their presence. It was said that when they entered a room, even the sound of armor would dim. Servos hushed, lights flickered. One of them looked at people without blinking. The other never spoke first. Together they stood without need for commands. That story, of course, has no proof. Most who heard it are gone. Those who wrote about it lost their pages. But certain patterns remain. A few recovered fragments from Luna's vaults list 2 project names close in designation, both tied to gene seed development, both flagged for review by the Emperor himself. Their tags were written in code, but the records show them being moved together, transported at the same time, guarded by the same custode detail. Then, silence. No project logs, no trial notes, nothing after the date of dispersal. The idea of twin Primarchs raises more questions than answers. If they were truly alike in form or mind, then what could have made them a threat? What line did they cross that their memory had to be destroyed? One story suggests they tried to act before the crusade began, that they saw a future they were not meant to see, a future that included betrayal, war, the fall of sons, and in seeing it, they tried to stop it. Another theory says they reached too far, that they uncovered something within the warp, something not even the Emperor wished to face, and rather than let that knowledge spread, they were removed completely. What sets them apart is not that they failed, it is that they acted in union. No other Primarchs, not even the closest of brothers, worked in such lockstep. Their bond was not chosen, it was written into them. And if that bond turned towards something forbidden, it would not be a rebellion. It would be a break too dangerous to name. The halls beneath Luna still carry echoes. Some claim they hear footsteps, not one pair, but two, walking in perfect rhythm. A security drone once captured blurred shapes moving through the dark. They vanished before the next frame. The machine was later marked for decommission. But those who study the lost know what they believe. If the 2nd and 11th were twins, then their silence was not a mistake. It was a choice made by something higher, not to punish, but to protect. When the Great Crusade began, the Emperor raised 20 legions to carry out his will. Each was formed from gene seed, each shaped by the hope that one day their Primarch would return. The legions marched in order. Their numbers told their place. 1 through 20. The banners of the legions still fly across the stars. Some are bright and proud, like the blue of the Ultramarines. Others are worn but feared, like the black of the Raven Guard. Their symbols are marked in records, in stone, in memory. But the 2nd and 11th banners are missing. It is not just that they are gone, it is the way they were taken. In the Hall of Names, deep within the Basilica Imperialis, there are large murals painted to honor the 20 original legions. Each wall tells a piece of the story: the armor of the Space Wolves, the blades of the White Scars. Yet 2 mural sections remain sealed. A thin veil of steel was placed across them long ago. The servitors who tend that wing clean around them. They are never touched. A former scribe once spoke of seeing one of the hidden paintings. He said it showed a shape like a broken sword surrounded by flame. But when he tried to describe the second, his voice failed. He stood there in silence, eyes wide, until he fell forward and never woke. Some said it was a stroke. Others claimed he saw something no one should have seen. The Imperium does not honor those banners. It does not teach about those legions. But the proof of their existence remains if one knows where to look. In the early Crusade reports, logistics tallies mention 2 full forces beyond the others. Thousands of power armor suits, rows of Thunderhawks, entire armories supplied with weapons never reassigned. Then all listed as redirected. Where they went is not shown. Even the Mechanicum seemed unsure. A Forge Lord from Riser once asked why 2 Legion symbols were never transferred into the main data array. He said they had placeholders. The machines were ready, the sigils were drawn but never approved. Before his question could be answered, he was reassigned off-world. No reason given. His post remains empty. Some believe the 2 legions were never deployed, that they were held back, kept hidden for a special purpose. But that theory falls apart when you read the old transmission logs. There are records, short ones, of missions, tagged under code marks for the 2 and 11, patrol routes, clearance signs, orders given and carried out. These were not failed projects. These were functioning legions. And yet no one alive wears their colors. No living chapter traces its bloodline back to them. Every known successor legion connects to the remaining 18. Some Imperial scholars once wondered why there were no relics, no armor remains, no sigils painted on old battle stations. But the truth might not be that nothing was left behind. It may be that everything was removed with care, erased by hands that knew what they were doing. Not like a cover-up meant to hide guilt, more like a quiet, clean sweep, done slowly, carefully, until even memory stopped trying to reach for it. And if that effort was so exact, it leads to another question. What did those banners stand for? What did those legions do that required such complete removal? This was not the act of enemies. It was the will of the Imperium itself. There are many stories in the Imperium that should not be told. Some are lost because time has worn them down. Others because they were never written in the first place. And then there are the ones that were removed on purpose, not by enemies, but by those who claim to protect the truth. One of those stories speaks of a gathering held in secret. It did not take place in a cathedral or on a battlefield. It happened beneath the surface of terror, far below the layers of stone and metal. Some call it the Pale Council. Others simply call it the 43. It was not a war council. It was not part of the High Lords or the Ecclesiarchy. No record of it appears in the archives of the Adeptus Administratum, but fragments remain in the margins of old data tablets, marked with strange numbers that do not match any known series. The number 43 appears again and again. There were 43 present, but not all were human. Some were described only as figures in white robes. One was marked with a symbol that no longer appears in any imperial lexicon. And at the center of the gathering, it is said, sat the Emperor. What was spoken during this meeting is not written down, but the effect is known. Shortly after the legions were renumbered, orders were sent out to remove specific sigils. Astropaths were instructed to rewrite logs. Monuments on Mars were taken down. Entire data vaults were sealed under new encryptions. And 2 thrones within the Hall of Unity were marked for erasure. The Pale Council made no speeches. There were no trials, no accusations. Whatever decision was made, it happened behind closed doors. Some think this was where the fate of the 2nd and 11th was sealed. A theory passed between certain Ordo Chronos agents suggests the meeting was about containment, that the lost Primarchs had found something so powerful or so dangerous that no war could stop it. And rather than let that knowledge spread, the Emperor gathered those he trusted most and made a decision. Not destruction, but silence. The name Pale Council might come from the way those present were described. None wore color, no banners, no rank insignias. Even the custodes guarding the chamber stood without their usual armor. Everything was made plain. Only the Emperor, it is said, remained unchanged. If this story is true, then what followed was not chaos. It was order made heavy, a weight placed on the galaxy so it would not break. One of the few remaining signs of the meeting lies within a sealed vault beneath the Imperial Palace. A slate etched in deep grooves shows 20 circles. 2 are cracked, the others are smooth. Above the slate is a simple line: none shall bear what they once carried. That line may mean nothing to most, but for those who study the lost, it may be the only sentence left behind that explains the choice made that day. And maybe that is the part no one wants to accept, that the Imperium did not lose them. It chose to let them go. Long after the Pale Council was said to have ended, something else appeared in the quiet corners of the Imperium. It was not a document, not a message, not even a direct order. It was a shift in the way certain people acted, as if they had seen something no one else had, as if they had made a promise they could never break. This promise came to be known by only one name: the Starlit Accord. The phrase first appeared in a shattered file recovered from a wrecked archive ship near the Halo Zone. Most of the data was gone, corrupted beyond repair, but a fragment survived. The words spoke of a pact forged in the presence of starlight, of two names sealed beneath the sky. No clear names were given, only marks that matched the numerals 2 and 11. Those who believe the Starlit Accord was real say it was not signed by enemies. It was not born in anger or rebellion. It was agreed upon by the Emperor and his lost sons. Some even say it was done with love, not shame. A farewell that held purpose, not punishment. One version of the tale says the lost Primarchs came to understand something about the warp that others had missed. Not just its danger, but its shape. That it was not wild chaos, but something that listened. Something that responded when called. And worse, something that could be shaped by thought, if enough minds believed the same thing. They brought this truth back to the Emperor, not to rise above him, but to serve. And that perhaps was the moment the decision was made. To keep the Imperium safe, they could not remain. Their words, if shared, might bend the course of everything. Their knowledge might break what was still growing. And so the Starlit Accord was made. A pact sealed not in blood, but in silence. A choice to vanish so others could continue. It is said the Emperor did not raise his voice during this meeting, that no anger passed between them, only understanding. He gave them a final charge, a last mission, and they accepted it, without reward, without memory, without place. Some say the Starlit Accord meant exile beyond known space, that they were sent into the dark corners of the galaxy where even the Astronomicon does not reach. Others believe they never left at all, that they walk still, hidden by design, unseen among the tides of history. Their legions, according to this view, were not destroyed. They were given new names, new symbols. Some even whisper that a few of the chapters now called cursed may hold their blood. That the Black Templars, the Exorcists, Testanaces, or the Relictors might carry shadows of what once was. But this cannot be proven. The Accord, if it existed, left no witnesses. Only silence. A silence so complete that even the Ordo Malleus has no record of its terms. The High Lords never speak of it, and those few who claim to have seen the sealed vaults that might hold the truth never speak again. If the Starlit Accord happened, it tells us something heavy. That the Imperium was built not only on power and faith, but on a decision to forget. That somewhere along the way, the Emperor chose to lose something he loved, because the cost of keeping it was too high. And maybe that is the part we cannot face. That the lost were not taken by fate. They were given up. Ferrus Manus, the Primarch of the Iron Hands, was not known for showing feeling. His strength came from precision. His mind worked like a forge, shaping discipline into action. But even he left behind signs of something deeper, something personal. A connection tied not to war, but to someone forgotten. On Medusa, long before the Horus Heresy, Ferrus had built a stone monument deep in the cliffs near the Valley of Iron. It stood apart from the forges and bastions, away from the halls of his legion. The monument was carved by hand. It showed a single figure wrapped in armor without color. No weapons were drawn, no pose of glory, just a warrior gazing into space, one arm stretched toward the stars. The Iron Hands called it the statue of the unnamed brother. Most of them did not know what it meant. When asked, Ferrus said little. Some thought it was a reminder of duty. Others believed it honored the fallen. But the tech priests who studied its shape found something strange. The armor style did not match any of the known legions. The markings on the base were faded, but a few believed they once held the numeral 11. After Ferrus died on Istvan V, the monument was ordered taken down. Rogel Dawn sent the command himself. He said it served no purpose anymore. When Fulgrim saw it burn, he said nothing. He simply turned and walked away. That silence was not common for Fulgrim. He always spoke with force. He did not leave things unsaid. But that day, he gave no order. He let the fire take the stone without a word. Some scholars believe Ferrus may have once fought beside one of the lost. That during the early phases of the Great Crusade, before the full Primarchs had gathered, there were missions carried out by pairs. Operations so distant, so dangerous, only those trusted most were sent. The records of those campaigns are thin. But in one, listed only as Operation Greyblade, two symbols appeared on the data slate. One was the cog of the Iron Hands, the other was blank. If Ferrus had such a bond, it might explain the monument. It might explain why he built it with his own hands, why he placed it far from the eyes of others, not to hide shame, but to honor someone who no longer existed on paper. The unnamed brother was not called a traitor. No curse followed his image, only quiet. And that quiet says more than words. It tells us Ferrus remembered. Even when the rest of the Imperium was told to forget, he carved memory into stone. And when that memory was erased, no one dared speak of it again. But the fire that burned that statue did not reach every eye. Some saw its shape. Some still hold drawings made before the destruction. And though the figure has no name, those who saw it remember the way the hand stretched upward, not in pride, but in farewell. In a galaxy shaped by war, memory can be as powerful as a weapon. Most records are kept by scribes, stored in data vaults, or marked on stone. But there are other keepers, ones who do not work in light, ones who are not known by name. They are called the memory keepers. Some believe they began as part of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica. Others say they were trained by the Ordo Chronos. No one truly knows. Their role is not written in standard files, but across the stars, in places where gaps remain, their touch can be felt. On ships that travel far from Terra, sometimes astropaths dream of voices they cannot trace. Words spoken in a tongue older than Low Gothic, numbers that skip in patterns, a name almost spoken, then swallowed. These dreams are never logged, but when they grow too frequent, a ship may be visited. The memory keepers do not arrive in force. They do not wear sigils. When they come, they speak with the navigator. They do not explain why. They only ask to see the dreamer. And when they leave, the dreams end. The astropath forgets. The ship moves on. There is a mark they leave behind. A broken aquila, missing its wings. Some call it a mistake, but those who know better understand it as a sign, a signal that the past brushed too close. One captain reported finding a small case in his quarters after such a visit. Inside was a worn strip of parchment. The ink was nearly gone, but a faint image showed two armored figures facing away from a throne. One held a sealed book, the other carried nothing. The parchment crumbled days later, but the captain remembered the figures. He said they did not look lost, they looked chosen. The memory keepers appear where silence breaks. They are not meant to destroy. They guide the forgetting. They smooth over the edges where truth begins to bleed through, and they are always quiet. On Cardia, before its fall, there was a vault hidden beneath the southern ice shelf. Inside were sealed mind recordings, dreams taken from psychers too unstable to serve. One of those records played for 6 seconds before it cut out. It showed a battlefield that never happened, soldiers in armor that matched no known pattern. A voice spoke just once. It said, this is not the first forgetting. The file was destroyed. Yet the memory keepers are not agents of fear. They do not erase everything. They leave behind fragments, hints, echoes. It is as if they believe some truths should remain hidden, but not fully lost. That part of the story must be known, just enough to keep us watching, just enough to remind us what silence costs. And perhaps that is their true purpose. Not to erase the lost, but to make sure we never forget that they were taken. Within the deepest levels of the Imperial Palace, past the gates where even the custodes tread lightly, there are sealed chambers built before the Great Crusade began. Most of them hold artifacts from terrors long past. Broken banners, burned texts. Things saved not for glory, but because no one dared throw them away. But there is one chamber that is different. It is not listed on any map. Its entrance has no door, just a wall that seems solid until you reach a certain point. Those who serve in the region do not speak of it. When asked, they say there is nothing there, but some know better. The chamber that lies behind the false wall is shaped like a circle. In the center stands a single throne. It is carved from black stone, smooth and cold. The shape matches the others in the Hall of Unity, but this one has never been named. No sigils are carved into the surface. No light shines above it. The throne is wrapped in silence. Those who have seen it say the silence is not natural. It is held in place, like something trying to press through but kept out by force. The throne has no dust, no cracks. Even the air does not move. There is an object resting at its base. A blade, still sheathed, forged in the style used during the early crusade. Its metal is dark, like iron left in starlight. The hilt bears no symbol, just a line of runes written in a language no one speaks. A custodes once stood watch near this place during a shift rotation. He was not told what the chamber held, only that it must not be entered. Years later, after the Siege of Terror, he was asked to describe it. He said he did not see a throne. He saw a memory sitting in place, not alive, not gone, waiting. Some say the throne was made for the 2nd or the 11th Primarch, that it was placed before the Great Crusade ended, meant to welcome one of the lost home, but it was never used. When the Primarchs gathered, this seat remained cold. Others say the throne is not empty, that something sits there still, not in body, but in weight. A decision, a pact, a ghost shaped like duty. And this leads to the question many fear to ask. If the Emperor knew his sons would fall, if he saw their end before the first campaign began, then why build a throne for one who would not stay? Unless he hoped they would return, unless part of him still believed they could find their way back. The throne stands untouched. No one claims it. No one dares remove it. It waits. And in that waiting, there is something more than silence. There is a choice never spoken, a place kept open, not for honor, but for memory. Most who fall from the Emperor's light are remembered. The traitor Primarchs have names carved into warning stones. Their worlds are marked with signs of ruin. Their legions became the enemy, hunted across space, feared by all. Their fall was loud. But the lost Primarchs did not fall in fire. They were removed in silence. No shame placed upon them. No curse handed down. Just absence. This kind of erasure does not come from rage. It does not follow betrayal. It follows something harder to explain. A decision made not in battle, but in silence. The Inquisition does not speak of them. Even within the Ordo Hereticus, where knowledge is held close, there are no files. When questioned, the response is simple. There is nothing to share, but there must have been something. The Space Marines are shaped by gene seed, Each chapter knows its origin. Each can trace its line back to a Primarch, but no gene seed exists for the 2nd or the 11th. No recovered vaults, no frozen samples, not even rejected strains. And that is strange. Even the traitor legions have broken samples. Even the cursed projects leave behind fragments. But this is a clean absence, a hole where matter should be. Some believe this was mercy, that the Emperor chose to remove not just the names, but every trace, so no one could copy them. Not because of evil, but because of power, a kind of power that could not be allowed to repeat. Others believe the Primarchs asked for it, that they saw what they had become, or what they would cause, and chose to end their place before it could twist. Not a fall, a step away. A single scribe once claimed to have read a sealed vault on Terra that held a final decree. The decree was unsigned. It did not accuse. It simply stated that loyalty can demand departure. The meaning was not explained. The vault was locked again, and the scribe was reassigned to a quiet post on a dead moon. Even the Black Library, that hidden place watched over by the Eldar, speaks of the lost, not directly, but in shadow. A Harlequin dance tells of 2 golden stars that burned too bright and were covered by veils. The dance ends with a closed book and a bowed head. This is not how traitors are remembered. This is how something precious is placed beyond reach. And so we reach the last truth that can be known without breaking what holds. The lost Primarchs were not erased for betrayal, not punished for failure. They were removed without blame, a kind of loss that does not carry hate, only sorrow. And in that sorrow we see something else. Far from Terra, deep inside the shadows of the Segmentum Obscurus, a black ship moved through the void without sound. It had no name carved into its hull, no signal lights, no crew names listed on its charts. The ship carried psychers bound in chains. It moved through space not for war but for silence. Inside its lower decks, a vault rested untouched for years. It was marked as sealed, its purpose forgotten. But during a routine psychic scan, one of the bound psychers began to speak in a voice not their own. It came out slow, calm, in perfect high Gothic. The voice spoke the names of 18 Primarchs. Then it named 2 more. The crew froze. The psyker fell still. The vault door lit with symbols not seen in any known pattern. The Mechanicus on board sent a signal back to Terra, but no answer came. Just a return command with one word: isolate. What followed was never recorded in standard logs, but an archivist later recovered fragments of the ship's final data strings. In one, a short message was listed with a timestamp. It read, "They remember us." No coordinates were shared, no beacon was left, but the vault stayed lit for 6 days. Then it went dark. Some say the ship reached the edge of the maelstrom. Others believe it was pulled from reality. The truth was never shared. The psychers on board were declared lost. The vault's contents were listed as cleansed. But this was not the only whisper. In the same year, a listening station orbiting an abandoned moon caught a strange echo. Not a transmission, not a voice. A harmonic sound, buried inside static. When filtered, it formed a shape on the cogitator screen. The pattern looked like a stylized aquila, but instead of 2 wings, it had only 1. The other side was shadow, and beneath it, the screen flashed 2 numerals. The tech priest present at the station erased the reading. He marked it as machine error, but before he shut the system down, he wrote 1 line in his private log: "The silence is not empty." What this means is still unknown, but for those who study the lost, these events cannot be chance. The timing, the symbols, the voice that spoke beyond the veil. These are not just echoes of the past. They are signals. And if something still speaks, it means something may still remain. Not as myth, but as memory trying to return. On the Forge world of Huldrith Delta, buried beneath layers of ash and steel, the remains of a long-forgotten battle were found. The Mechanicus team sent to study the site believed it to be from the early days of the Great Crusade. The terrain was scorched. The buildings around it had melted into slag. Only a few objects remained. Among the wreckage, deep under collapsed ferrocrete, they uncovered a helmet. The helm was shaped like early Mark II power armor, a design used before the legions fully spread across the stars. Its color was faded, almost white, not pure, but pale like frost left too long in shadow. Across the dome of the helm, a single symbol was scratched, a line, then another below it, forming a shape like a broken 11. It did not match any known chapter. The tech priests scanned for traces. The machine spirit inside was quiet, not dead, sleeping. The archivist in charge of the dig requested a match through central records. No answer came. Weeks passed. Then an automated signal arrived. It gave no data, only a directive. Hold, prepare for retrieval. 2 days later, a black craft descended from orbit. No insignias were visible, no banners. A single figure stepped out wearing robes too old to place. The Mechanicus staff were told to leave the site. The helm was taken. Nothing else was touched. When asked later about what the figure said, the team leader could only remember a few words. We were not erased. We were placed beyond reach. No follow-up was filed, but someone had taken notice. Someone still cared enough to recover the past, not to display it, not to honor it, to protect it. Some who studied the incident said the pale helm matched patterns seen on armor plates once rumored to belong to the Izazith Legion, a theory that had long been rejected, a legion with no proof left behind. Yet now, there was something. A piece of armor that had not turned to dust, a mark scratched by hand. And that scratch may be more than a symbol. It may be a message, that whoever wore it knew their place in history had changed, that they were not lost by chance, but by choice, still alive when their name was removed, still walking when their legacy faded. A relic like this should not exist. It breaks the silence. It calls into question every story told about the early crusade. If one helm survived, then others might have as well. And if that legion still breathes in secret, then maybe the past is not sealed. Maybe it is waiting, not to return in full, but to be found in pieces. One memory at a time, at the edge of the halo stars, past charted routes and forgotten signals, a team of explorators drifted into a sector marked unfit for travel. Their mission had not been approved by the High Lords. It was quiet, funded by a lesser Forge world seeking ancient technology. The ship they used was old but functional. Its machine spirit was temperamental, but it obeyed when asked. For 6 weeks they traveled without contact. Then, without warning, a signal reached their vox. It was not a distress call, not a cry for help. It was a calm voice speaking in perfect Gothic, repeating only one phrase. I was the first to wake. The signal carried no coordinates, yet it reached them clearly. The explorators followed it toward a dark system lit by a dying star. As they drew closer, their sensors shut down one by one. Lights flickered. Vox systems dropped. Only the signal remained. The ship's servitor scouts were sent ahead. One returned. Its camera had been damaged, but a few frames remained. In those frames stood a single figure, clad in armor shaped like no known pattern. The plating shimmered with pale metal, clean and unmarked. The figure stood alone on a ruined plateau, hands at its sides. The voice on the recording did not match any record in the databanks. It was steady, unhurried, as if speaking through memory. This is not where I belong, but I remain. The explorators did not land. The machine spirit refused. They drifted above the planet for another hour, then turned back. Their ship carried them home, but not unchanged. The one servitor that returned no longer answered commands. It moved, but only when left alone. Its core could not be opened. When tested, it responded with a single line of code: I remember. Upon their return, the team filed a report. Most of it was rejected as false. The official record listed power failures, equipment malfunction, exposure to deep space radiation. But the lead explorator had kept a private file. Inside it, he wrote that the figure in the frames had not looked lost, not dead, not hiding, just waiting. And his armor bore a symbol, 2 lines, one above the other. No Legion uses that mark now, but it has been seen before. If the recording was true, then one of the lost is not gone. He walks still beyond the maps, beyond the reach of the Imperium. Not all signs of the lost are found in ruins or relics. Some appear in thought, in dreams that move too deep. Within the Librarius of the Adeptus Astartes, psychers train to guard the Imperium's mind. They are taught to shield themselves, to read the warp with control. But there was a time when even the librarians broke apart. That time is now called the Schism. It happened on Titan, among the Grey Knights. They were built for purity, created to stand against demons. No stain could reach them. Or so it was believed. A gathering of senior psychers met to share vision patterns. They were studying shared echoes, things that passed between minds but left no trace in the warp. During that process, something happened. One librarian collapsed, then another. 7 fell silent, their eyes open, their minds locked. When they woke, they each spoke the same line. We saw them turn away. The meaning was unclear, but every one of them drew the same image afterward. 2 shapes walking from a golden throne. One carried a sealed book, the other held a sphere of light. Neither looked back. The Grand Masters sealed the vision. The event was listed as psychic contamination. All involved were reassigned, but one of the scribes copied the drawings before they were destroyed. She kept them hidden inside the folds of her robe. Years later, before her death, she gave them to a wandering preacher. He showed them to no one. He said the pictures were not meant for display. He believed they were not warnings. They were memories sent through time. This belief created quiet tension. A split formed among those who had seen the images. Some thought they were false echoes. Others believed they were truths from a hidden past. The division did not grow loud. It stayed soft, but it spread. And this is why it matters. If these visions were real, it would mean something powerful still moves beneath the surface of the Imperium. Something connected to the lost. Something willing to speak, even now. The librarians across the chapters began to feel unease. A few closed their studies for a time. Some burned old records. Others started new ones in private. Patterns were watched. Thoughts were tracked. And in all of it, 2 symbols kept returning. No one claims them. No voice says they belong. But they rise like tide water, pulling at those who think too deep. This was not a battle of blades. It was a fracture of thought. And even now, the pieces have not fully settled. On a dead world in the Ultima Segmentum, where storms rise without end and the ground is carved by wind, an ancient structure still stands. It is not a fortress. It is not a shrine. It is shaped like a chapel, built from dark stone and buried in the cliffs. Its walls lean inward, like they were built to hide something, not hold it. Inside that place, hidden behind a layer of ash, explorers found a series of wall markings, not painted, carved deep. Each panel showed a tall figure in armor, their heads circled by rings of light. There were 20 in total, each standing with a unique crown. 9 of them had names in High Gothic. 9 more held sigils tied to known Primarchs, but 2 remained faceless. Where the faces should have been, only smooth stone remained. Their crowns were untouched, still shining in the carvings. One held a scale, the other a book marked with the sign of silence. No planet holds records of this chapel. No order claimed to have built it. When the explorers tried to send images back through their Vox relays, the signal turned to static. They carried the data physically, but halfway through transit, their transport ship vanished. It returned days later, empty. The picked records were found still locked in the vault. The data was intact. It had not been touched. But the servitors that handled the case showed signs of deep magnetic stress. Their minds were blank. When reset, they repeated only one sentence: "The crown remains." When the data was reviewed, scholars argued about the meaning. Some believed the faceless figures were lost saints. Others said they were unfinished art. But those who knew the shape of the Primarchs could see the truth. The armor design, the spacing of the symbols, the unmarked thrones that mirrored those in the Hall of Unity. The script of 9 crowns, as the wall series came to be called, is not recognized by the ecclesiarchy. It is stored in a deep vault under inquisitorial seal, but copies remain in secret, and they speak without words. They show a version of history no one dares to speak aloud. That the lost Primarchs were not erased as a punishment. They were removed because their legacy did not fit, not with shame, but with weight too large to carry. And the crowns they left behind, etched into stone where no one should have carved, still shine, not to honor the fallen, to mark a choice never spoken. In the lower hives of terror, far below the sky, there are people who do not dream. They walk among the crowded streets with quiet eyes and no presence in the warp. They are known as blanks or pariahs. Most fear them. Some study them. Fewer still listen to what they say in their sleep. One child was born in Hive Caron during a deep winter cycle. The records show nothing unusual. His parents were workers. His early tests showed low warp resonance, but after his 3rd year he began to speak during rest. At first the words made no sense. Phrases in languages never heard in the hive. Names not found in the local datanet. Then, one night, he sang. The song was low, soft, shaped like chant. The melody had no rhythm, but it held power. Those who heard it felt a cold weight settle in the room. Vox units recorded nothing, but one scribe wrote down what she could remember. It spoke of stars bound in silence, of brothers who walked before history began, of a father who watched as they left, not in anger, but in sorrow. The words had no source. The boy could not remember them. He never spoke while awake. The local enforcers marked the case, but took no action. Until a visitor arrived from outside the hive. His badge showed no rank. His robes were plain, but when he asked to see the child, no one denied him. He spent less than an hour in the room. When he left, the song had stopped. The child lived, but he never spoke again. Some say the boy had been touched by a truth too old to carry, that his blank soul let something through, not a spirit, not a daemon, but a memory that could not find rest. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica logged the case. They labeled it resonant drift, but others called it something else. The Song of Pariah Flesh. They believe such events are rare, but not random. That when the mind is quiet enough, when the body holds no echo in the warp, Something from the past can use it like a voice, and that voice sings of the lost.